Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the SHTICK, where we're starting season number 45. It's winter, and we've got somebody here that's come from Asia, where it's really hot, to this freezing cold Melbourne weather, where we've just had an amazing festival, the Melbourne Jewish Writers Festival. And one of the participants, an international participant, was Romi Grossberg.
Hi, Henry.
How are you feeling?
I'm freezing.
I know, it's the first day that we really felt the cold today. And you came to present at the Writers' Festival.
Yeah, so I was one of the closing sessions last evening for the Melbourne Jewish Writers Festival. I did a 1-hour interview with Danny Blay. So yeah, it was fantastic for 5 o'clock last night.
Everybody was in conversation. There was a lot of conversation going on, which I think is very stimulating. You'd get an author. We're going to show a few people that we might mention along the way. There were so many presenters. I don't even know how many sessions there were, but it went for 2 days. Yeah. And some of the notable people that came from overseas were Ilana Stockman, who I've been following around Melbourne, who's a feminist. And she spoke with other feminists, and there were people of all kinds. But you yourself have got a story of your own. So tell our viewers, what's your shtick?
Yeah, well, I came in with my new book called The 5-Minute Guide to Emotional Intelligence. I live in Thailand, and previous to that I was living in Cambodia. And my main shtick, I guess, I would say my main thing, is emotional intelligence, writing therapy. For me, it's all about getting to know yourself better so that you can get to know others and have just a slightly easier life, really. And it does make a huge difference if you can work out what are your emotions, how can you kind of work out what they are, how can you find them in your body. We hold different emotions in different places. How do we make decisions? Where do we think from? Do we use our gut, our heart, our head, and all the battles in between? So it's a fascinating topic, and writing therapy is quite new. It's not so much that it's a new form of therapy, but it's newly becoming recognised, I think. So it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, this is the book here. It's just been released, yeah? And I really like this kind of thing because it makes you think about your thoughts.
Yeah.
Because we're all thinking all the time, and we have to realise that our mind is not really where it's at. It's more our feeling that we should be following our intuition.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you're all about.
Yeah, and when I think on the back blurb somewhere it says get out of your head, and you can see people always sort of smile and then nod like, yeah. And even last night when I talked about how do you get out of your head in terms of self-edit, self-critic, self-judgment, how do you get out of that space and get back to this space? So often the workshops that I run are called Writing from the Source, and by source I mean here, how do you express from your gut, which is really, it's the intuition, it's the free-flowing, it's getting back to nature and getting back to almost childhood and expressing from that place rather than over-analysing everything and driving yourself crazy and not actually getting anywhere.
Yeah, I tend to find we're all a bit hard on ourselves.
Absolutely.
And we're all thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done this and I could have done that. And, you know, instead of just getting on with it, we're all still thinking about what we could have done or what we should be doing and all that sort of thing.
And it's amazing what happens when you stop thinking, which sounds a bit crazy, but in the workshops, for instance, when I get people to do writing exercises that are really based on free-flowing gut instinct, and really there are things that you can do to get out of that headspace, and then people will do a writing exercise, and it's incredible. People write stories that they didn't even know was in them. They become poetic or creative. A lot of people will write a story of a childhood memory that they didn't know they remembered. So things come up that are quite shocking often.
And they're opening blockages, really. Yeah, I mean, we're all blocking and holding back our real emotions.
Yeah.
And but I wanted to go back to your background, which is Melbourne, and you were involved with Maccabi, and you did a Masters in International Public Health, which was really interesting, and you worked as a counsellor in St Kilda. With people with drug and alcohol and all sorts of street people. Yes?
Yeah, I worked in St Kilda. I was working in mental health, drug and alcohol and homelessness. Did a similar position before that around the Box Hill area and sort of further out Blackburn way.
Right.
So yeah, I've been in this social work counselling probably for over 10 years, and also a lot of development work, a lot of volunteer work around India, Cambodia, Vietnam. So Asia feels very home for me.
Yeah, so you were in Cambodia for a few years.
Yeah, I spent almost 4 years in Cambodia.
Working with Looney Tunes?
Tiny Tunes. We often get called Looney Tunes, though.
I always think of Looney Tunes, but they're kids that came from the slums that had really basic family problems and with drugs and alcohol, the whole thing, and you set up a centre, or you were managing a centre?
Yeah, so Tiny Toones was founded by a guy called KK, Toy Sabil, and I was the manager there when I was in Cambodia. And it's a drop-in centre using hip-hop as an engagement tool to work in that real underground youth, you know, the real breakdance hip-hop world. And we had from little children of 4 or 5 years old up to early 20s. So we would have everything from the hip-hop, DJing, dancing, lyric writing, graffiti, all the arts hip-hop world, and then we would also do life skill education like sex and drugs and HIV education, and then English and Khmer and math. So you get a real all-rounded education and help empower these kids to get off the streets. They were often ex-gang members, drug users, victims of family violence, victims of extreme poverty. So help empower them to want more for themselves and help them actually achieve that. That's
a very commendable job you have there.
It was the most incredible thing I've ever done in my life, without a doubt, and I'm still in touch with all of them. It's quite time-consuming to be on Facebook with all of them.
And now you're based on a little island in the southeast of Thailand?
Yeah, so 3.5 years ago I moved to Thailand. I actually moved there to get a bit of distance. Also, I was very emotionally involved with my kids in Cambodia, and that got tough. And so I moved to actually finish writing my book called Hip Hop and Hope from the Slums of Phnom Penh, which is kind of a memoir of my life story and their life stories and the journey together. So I moved to Thailand to finish that book. I did finish it, I'm still editing it, and then got sidetracked by writing this book, and you know, life goes on, and counselling and writing therapy and stuff.
Well, you'll be coming back to me on the third segment. Now we're going into our second segment, where we've got Newt coming back, and he's showing that Australia has got something to be very ashamed of, and that's the asylum issue, the asylum seekers. And he's going to be telling you a bit about the Chasing Asylum film and book by Eva Orner, with a bit of a trailer and his commentary. And then we'll be back in the third segment to talk a bit more about writing.
Fantastic.
And everything else.
I might see a shy young girl hiding in the corner. I might see a teenage boy watching the dance floor, too afraid to join in. I might see a bruised child embarrassed by their family. Poverty-stricken kids. They all dream of a better future. They all want to feel at peace with themselves. They all want to find that place that allows them to let go. They watch the dance floor, these guys, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. And then one day, they step up. I don't know why, they just do. One day they step up. They hear the music, they can't help but be taken over by it. They close their eyes and they begin to dance. No judgments, just dance. Weeks later, I witnessed these same kids stride into Tiny Toones, smiles on faces, high fives all around. They join dance classes, they dance in groups, they dance alone. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. They have found their safe place in their heart and on the dance floor. They have found that place that allows them to let go, where they can dance away their hurt, their anger, their pain, their frustration. A place they can just sweat it out.